Chapter 5. The Turtle is Born. David went back to Saybrook and spent the next 2 months building the turtle. He worked in a shed at Ayers Point on the Connecticut River. He thought this remote spot would keep his boat secret from the British. Friends wanted him to ask the government for help, but David chose to build the boat on his own. Several times he had to stop until he could get more money. By August, the boat was finished. His friends looked forward to the test. One friend, Benjamin Gale, invited Benjamin Franklin to see this new machine. Franklin came. After his visit, Gale wrote to a friend in Congress, "Dr. Franklin did me the honor to call upon me and is now convinced his, Bushnell's, magazine, mine, will contain 3 times so much powder as is necessary to destroy the largest ship in the British Navy." Gale didn't know it, but the local postmaster was a British spy. He opened and copied all of Gale's mail and then sent the copies to the British governor. So, in spite of all David's work to keep his plans secret, the English found out about the turtle. The governor thought the idea was a joke. He didn't pay attention to any of the reports. But the turtle was no joke. The tests proved that it worked. The little boat turned out to be about 6 feet high, 3 feet wide, and 4 feet long, just big enough for one man to squeeze inside. It was made of heavy oak planks. The spaces between the planks were sealed with tar to keep the water out, and then iron bands were shaped around it, like the bands around a wooden barrel. Air came in through 2 tubes that floated on top of the water. The tubes were fitted with cork valves that closed when they submerged. The turtle could hold about a 30-minute supply of air. There was a brass entrance on top of the boat from which the operator let himself in, feet first. Small glass windows in the brass top let light in when the boat was above water. This same idea is still used in modern submarines. Now it's called a conning tower. On the bottom of the turtle were hundreds of pounds of lead to keep the boat upright in the water. The driver sat on an oak beam inside the ship. Around him were all sorts of cranks and handles. He almost had to be a juggler to keep everything going. One crank turned a screw-type propeller that made the submarine move ahead. This was the boat's only power. There was no motor, and batteries had not yet been invented. If the driver cranked as hard and as fast as he could, the turtle would move at the speed of 3 miles an hour. That is, if there was no current or tide to work against. Another crank worked a screw propeller on top of the turtle. This propeller made the ship move up and down once it was underwater. To steer, the driver had to reach backward and move the rudder behind him. It would have helped if he'd had 3 hands. At the same time, the driver's feet were busy too. When he wanted to go down deeper in the water, he pushed a foot valve. This let water into a tank at the bottom of the boat, making the boat heavier and helping it sink. Then, when he wanted to come back up, he used 2 brass hand pumps to pump the water out. Here again, modern submarines follow David Bushnell's model. Today's submarines are controlled by ballast tanks that can be filled with water, causing the submarine to submerge or emptied to make it surface. As if all this cranking and pumping were not enough to keep the operator of the turtle busy, there was also the mine to worry about. The egg-shaped mine was made from a hollow log. It sat outside the turtle just above the rudder. The mine contained 150 pounds of gunpowder and a clock that was set to explode it. The clock could be set for any time up to 12 hours. When the time ran out, a little hammer struck a piece of steel, making sparks and lighting the powder. This was the world's first time bomb. The mine was attached by a rope to a long pointed wood screw on the top of the turtle. The screw could be turned from inside the boat by one more handle. First, this wood screw was driven into the bottom of an enemy ship. Then the operator unscrewed a rod inside the turtle, which loosened the bomb from the submarine and left it dangling by the rope from the enemy ship. As soon as the bomb left the turtle, the clock in the bomb started, giving the submarine time to get away. All this time, the driver's eyes were busy too. There was a compass to tell him which direction was going. There was also a gauge that told him how deep in the water the boat was. Modern submarines have many more gauges, but like the turtle, one of those gauges still tells the water depth. David thought of everything. He knew it would be dark in the turtle when it was underwater, so he made the water gauge and the tips of the compass of foxfire. Foxfire is a decaying wood that glows in the dark. But when he tested the boat during the winter of 1775, David found that foxfire froze, and when it was frozen, it didn't glow. He tried using a candle to see in the dark, but the burning candle used up the oxygen in the air too quickly. David's friends wrote to Benjamin Franklin, asking if Franklin knew of something else to use. While he was waiting for an answer, David showed plans of his boat to the governor of Connecticut and the Council of Safety of Connecticut, the Connecticut Army. The governor and the council approved his work and voted to keep the plans secret. They asked David to continue the tests and said they would repay him for his expenses. David thought he now had a contract with the state, but the agreement was never written down. Operating the turtle was hard work. David felt he was too frail for it. His brother, Ezra, was young and stronger, so Ezra got the job. All spring and summer, Ezra practiced. He worked hard and became very good at operating the turtle. The warm weather of spring melted the foxfire. The compass and water gauge glowed in the dark again. David also put in a new pump in place of the one that had been causing problems. Now, everything was ready for a test against the enemy.